My name is Daniella Prieshoff. I'm the managing attorney here at Tahirih Justice Center's Baltimore office. And I am here joined by one of our fabulous pro bono attorneys from Hogan Lovells. I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Carina Tenaglia. I am a senior associate at Hogan Lovells, and I've been there for about 5 years.
Thank you so much for joining us, Carina. And we're so glad that you've just taken more of your time to help us out. And I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. So, one of my first questions is can you tell us a bit more about your background and what led you to Hogan Lovells, and then eventually what led you to Tahirih Justice Center?
Yeah, I knew I wanted to be at a firm that had a global presence and had a strong commitment to pro bono, and Hogan Lovells was on my short list of firms that fit that criteria. And so I became a summer associate in 2018, and then I joined the firm officially in the fall of 2019. But I actually started doing some pro bono work, I believe, as a summer associate in 2018, including work for Tahirih, and I have not
Wonderful.
stopped since then.
You literally have not stopped. You've supported so many clients already. So thank you so much.
Mhm.
What first drew you to pro bono service itself?
Yeah, so I would say that, in a way, I started community service before even joining the legal profession, but specifically in the legal profession, I worked on some matters touching on a range of different areas in the pro bono space as a summer associate. And I continued actually when I rejoined at the firm. I started off as a pro bono associate. So we get the opportunity at Hogan to be a pro bono rotator for about 4 months. And so I actually literally started my brand new career at the firm as a pro bono attorney for 4 months.
That's amazing. That's wonderful that your firm supports you in that way and in that professional development.
Mhm.
And what about Tahre kind of drew you to work with immigrant survivors of gender-based violence?
Yeah, so my family is from Latin America, and I knew I had an interest in trying to use my language skills, cultural skills, and put some of the trauma-informed training to use to help survivors, help immigrants. And so I did a little bit of that work when I started as a summer associate, although for a much more limited period. And so when I rejoined the firm doing this pro bono rotation, I expressed that that was an area of interest of mine, and I was actually able to rejoin one of the matters I started as a summer associate and pick up some other cases. So that's how I first got started. And in terms of working with Tahirih, I really like the collaborative model. So I like that, in a way, we're able to, as associates, do a lot of the heavy lifting, but at the same time, never feel like we can't ask for help, for review, for samples. And so it felt like our hands were held to the extent we needed them to be, especially starting out. That was really important. But I think it did give us, I guess, this ability to become more confident in the work we were doing and really take it upon ourselves and interact with the client ourselves and things like that. So definitely, it was great.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And you kind of mentioned this a little bit in your responses, but did you have immigration law experience prior to working on pro bono matters at Tahrir?
I did not know. So I came in, you hear about things anecdotally and in the
Right.
news, but nothing like what it actually is.
Yeah. And did you feel like you received the training and support you needed to kind of hit the ground running in an immigration law matter at Tahrir?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I not only received plenty of samples, I received access to other trainings. You in particular as a supervisor were great in sending a bunch of information. And I work with other supervising attorneys who are really proactive in sending information or offering to find it if we couldn't ourselves or different resource banks. Whatever resources were available out there, they were at our disposal.
Wonderful. And I know that you took on two defensive asylum matters. So for those who may not know, defensive asylum matters are specifically for Tahrir. They mean a pro bono attorney and a Tahrir attorney co-counseling to represent an immigrant survivor before an immigration court facing deportation. And so what that means is that we work together, right? These two matters, you worked with Tahrir attorneys, the most recent one being with me, to make sure that this client would not get deported because she did suffer gender-based violence persecution. Did you feel that the training that you received at Tahirih or the samples or, the support prepared you to be able to represent someone in immigration court? Because I know some pro bono attorneys are a little hesitant about that part in pro bono support.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely so. And it can be daunting. I think that there's no two ways around that, right? These filings can be quite large and overwhelming, but I actually feel so strongly that we got the support because in both matters, the first one, the judge actually ended up ruling on the brief midway through the hearing. So that was incredible. And then in the second one, I mean, you were there. It was pretty similar. And so I
Yeah,
think that being able to say, we had so much support and so many resources, and we submitted such strong filings on not just one, but, multiple occasions, that it really was material to the outcome is a testament to that.
I definitely agree with that. That's great to hear. And what was your most rewarding experience in the pro bono matters you handled?
Oh gosh. They're really, I think anything that you can do where there's a direct representation and you're seeing the tangible impact is just like unlike any other work. Not to say other work isn't great, but in one of my first matters, the first defensive asylum case, we actually were able to help that client bring her 3 kids to the US this past year. And so, like, there was a lot of stress leading up to them actually being able to get here, but they're here now. They've been reunited. I actually went recently and helped them get their entry paperwork. There was a little snafu with that, but just seeing them all together and seeing how happy that client was. And I mean, any client just getting a positive result sends you over the moon.
What was something that you learned during your pro bono experience at Tahirih?
Yeah. I learned how to ask clients questions in different ways. And so I think, especially when we're dealing with trauma-informed clients, they may not always understand what you're getting at or why you're getting at it and why you're trying to build upon maybe facts that they don't see as being as material or that they'd really candidly rather not relive. And so that was something that was very much like a learned skill on the job over a long period of time, and that we really developed with a team of people. And so I think that's probably one of the biggest takeaways I had was thinking how to reframe a question, explaining the purpose of the question or what we were doing in a way that the client could really understand, and distilling it down and reaffirming the importance of all of these different details and steps in the process that kind of made this bigger process move a little bit more seamlessly.
Yes, having a trauma-informed practice is a bit different when you're coming from a more transactional, perhaps, practice in the law, maybe not encountering clients as often. So I'm really glad to hear that you kind of, even though it was a new skill set, you adapted to it, you learned, and that you felt supported for that. So that's really great to hear. And how would you say that your pro bono experience impacted your work at your firm now?
Yeah, it's definitely made me a better, more well-rounded attorney. I think that I've been able to also juggle those different parts of my work. It's never been, a question of what's more important. It's treated equally the same level of importance. And it's also helped me connect with other people across the firm that I don't always have the opportunity to work with. So we tend to kind of get siloed into our different groups, but it's been wonderful. I've been able to, learn about a lot of different organizations as well and find different ways to support them or work with them. And yeah, I mean, I can only imagine it's been 5 years of doing that. I'm sure the next few years I'll learn so much more.
Wonderful. And I also know that your firm in particular has a super unique model, like you said, very dedicated to pro bono. And your firm was, I think, made very sure to provide you all the support you needed, whether it was with a paralegal or with other kinds of support that you all needed to be able to complete your pro bono matter, which is really great to see. Why should private sector attorneys consider engaging in pro bono service, in your
Yeah,
opinion?
it's a great question. I think there's probably not a shortage of reasons, but I'll give a few. So I think, again, like I mentioned, it makes you a more well-rounded attorney. I personally had these experiences where I got more on my feet experience, and that was something that I wanted, more firsthand experience with clients. Also just putting together something like a brief, being able to really think on my feet. Those are things that, especially when I started off earlier in my career, I probably wouldn't have had the opportunity to do right off the bat. So I was able to develop these skills really early on and also able to take a lot of ownership, which again, I think is something that depending on someone's practice or firm or company, they may not be able to do that until a little bit later in their career. And that extends to other parts of your practice, right? To my billable practice. Um, I think again, like it made me a more well-rounded attorney, made me a more empathetic attorney in person. And it also opened up my eyes to a lot of the things that are going on, current event wise or otherwise. Those are just a few reasons, but I really don't think there's a shortage. I think it is the right thing to do also. But yeah, it definitely is one of the most rewarding parts of my work.
Karina, what would be your best tips to new pro bono attorneys wanting to engage in pro bono practice?
So I wouldn't wait. I would get started right away. And I also think that this is one of the best opportunities to learn and ask questions and seek out resources and trainings. Again, I had, I think, no shortage of information when I needed it. And if I had questions or was confused, even if it seemed, basic or dumb to me, I still asked it because I wanted to do right by the client. And I ended up learning so much more through that process. So yeah, I would say don't wait, don't be afraid to ask questions. Also, if it is a more, if it's a less intimidating prospect, maybe partnering up with someone so that you feel like you have additional support and someone else, especially within maybe the organization you work in, to work with you on it. I think that these teams are the best, but also like having other people to rely on can be really helpful too. And even just, be a really great morale boost.
Excellent. Those are really great tips, actually. Those are ones I try to share with my co-counsel as well. So thanks again. Thank you for your
Yeah.
time. And I love to have this conversation with you.